It's Monday, 23 minutes past 8 a.m. Here in Australia. Here's my latest video blog. Today I'm just going to cover an article I found on Cointelegraph and just quickly go over what's going on in the markets. We've had a second weekend in a row where it's been pretty positive. I think for the last month, anyone that's been involved will know that every weekend has seemed to be a bit of a red, a bit of a negative, a bit of a bloodbath. Which is not activity since the 1st of August, since the Bitcoin Cash fork drama has sort of settled down. And, you know, there's even things there to talk about as well. So I think firstly, we've got Bitcoin has pushed through that 3.1. It's now $3,222. In Bittrex, it's $3,267 US dollars, and it doesn't really look like slowing down now. And I'm going to come back to this, and there is a little bit of talk about, I think people are starting to wake up a little bit in regards to this entire market sector, and I'm going to cover a little bit on how I feel it is manipulated. And when I use the word manipulated, it's not always in a negative context. It's the fact that it's not necessarily organic, that there's greater powers influencing a direction. That's probably the best way to look at it. So with the Bitcoin, it's climbing, it's looking good, which is really supporting the entire market. What I have noticed is that if we go back in April, everything just went up. Altcoins went up, Bitcoin went up, the entire market cap went up. It went up to about 115 million or billion, 115 billion, sorry, as a whole, and we saw a lot of growth throughout the whole area. What we've seen now since the 1st of August is Bitcoin's gone up, but pretty much the altcoins have not necessarily retraced. They have retraced a little bit, and that's because you'll find that people, due to the activity in Bitcoin, are pulling some of their position out of some of these alts and moving into Bitcoin to ride that 5-10% whatever. Well, we just don't know how far it's going to go, and they're maximising their profit on some of the altcoins that may have been just going horizontal for a month. And it makes sort of trading sense. I mean, I'm not doing that as such. I probably should. And I do collect a little bit of Bitcoin, but probably not as much as I maybe should in regards to a percentage of my portfolio. I'm very heavy in the altcoins. But what's happening there is, like I said, the altcoins seem to be coming down. There's been a few that have sort of stood out and doing their own thing. I mean, Ethereum has gone up a little bit. I think ATH shares has gone, if you look at 1st of August, was around about 6, I'm going to talk in Australian dollars here, it was about 6 to 8 Australian dollars at its worst on that day, and then it's currently at $19, so it's up 300% in 7 days ish, which is pretty much, well, we could say double, okay, relative. So and I do have I'm pretty confident that AntShares is going to be a major leader. It's a smart contract platform similar to Ethereum, if you want to look at it in that way. However, it's Asia orientated, so it's going to be focusing more on the dApps that are going to be Asian specific, and China and those type of things, where they're going to have their own ecosystem and relative dApps that suit their world. And I think that's going to be a normal thing. We're going to see EOS, Ethereum, AntShares, and I can see those three being major leaders, and they're probably going to be chasing down Bitcoin in regards to the attention, because everything leads back to those platforms when you look at the dApps. So that's going to be something worth looking at. The other one I saw that's sort of gone on its own path is Populous. Populous was about $3 Australian not long, well, I think it was just a couple of days ago, and it's gone up a couple of bucks, whereas everything else has sort of held its position. Bitcoin Cash had that, like I talked about, it was 750 a week ago, and has really come down to that $200 US mark, and is now sort of going horizontal. So I think that deflation period where people who've sold out of BCH has occurred, but there'd be a number of people who are holding, they're not sure. Maybe they haven't even got around to moving it onto the exchanges to do whatever they want to do with it. So you might see some more volatility, but you might even see a little mini bounce back now from Bitcoin Cash at some stage. But what I wanted to sort of get to with all of this is that I feel that this is different. This is different sort of period of time to what was happening in April and March, and where we just had $180 billion into the market. What we have seen is Bitcoin get all the attention, plus or minus a couple of the altcoins, which are having their own inflation based on attention. So now there's a really good article here in Cointelegraph.com, and it's about spoofing, and they're talking about single trader with enormous bankroll is manipulating Bitcoin price, but to what end? So people are starting to pick up on this. Now, I was talking about this with DigiByte straight after. It was actually happened before the 1st of August, when in all good sense, DigiByte, after its last 45 days, should have retraced even more, and all of a sudden it came alive. And I talked about this, these buy walls that were specifically there going up and down. Now, someone else has picked up on it in regards to Bitcoin. So what they're doing is they're using a major body of finance, and they'll have a lot of Bitcoin, they'll have a lot of altcoins or whatever, but in this case, this article is talking about Bitcoin specifically. So they've got cash, Tether, or whatever is on the exchanges, and what they're doing is they're manipulating the price. Now, there's two ways of looking at this, and I think there's little internal dynamics. I'm not going to complain about Bitcoin price going up, and I don't think anyone that's invested in this space is going to complain about this. But what we need to be aware of is, the big underlying reasons why Bitcoin's being supported. And I'm not going to go into the New World Order, any of that type of stuff, and cashless societies. And I think there's a lot of negatives in regards to our own personal freedoms. I think there's a lot of positives in regards to the blockchain, the technology. In regards to this spoofing, it is pretty clear to me that a lot of money is coming into the space. Now, there is absolutely no doubt when you've got millions or billions of dollars to inject into a space, you're not going to do it in over 1 or 2 days, because you just can't in regards to the bids and the asks. You've got to maintain your buying average, especially when you've got millions of dollars. You don't want to just go and, you could do this. You could come in here, and that's the reason why you do have these aggressive spikes, is that someone may come in and take up a position, and what they're doing is they're buying into all the asks, and it goes up to a certain level, or to a level where they're comfortable to put that money in quickly over 1 or 2 hour period. But if you've got billions of dollars, they're going to do it over days and subsequent weeks, month. It could take a month to get this money in to a point where they're waiting for other bids to come in and sells and buys. So what they're doing is they're chipping away sorry, excuse me, to make sure that their average is maintained, so they're not buying in at too high a price, because they are influencing the market. Now, the other side of this is that they could actually sell out at any stage, and you might see a massive pullback, because if these guys have got a major proportion or major position, they've also got influence, because in the big scheme of things in regards to altcoins, the whole sector is not huge in relation to the 65 trillion dollar monetary system as a whole. So I think it's 0.01% or something. Even though it seems like $115 billion seems to us, it's just we can't even fathom how that's a big number for any general normal person. But in regards to the whole scheme of things, it's actually really small. So when you have someone that comes in with that amount of money and they've got hundreds of millions, they can make major movements within the market, and they're buying up major positions. And they, like I said, they can push the price up and they can push it down. But in regards to this spoofing, it does go into the tactics of it. where they put in buy walls, and some of them are fake buy walls and sell walls, and what they're doing is they're influencing emotionally other people's decisions where they actually go in and buy, and they're pushing people into zones or buy prices and sell prices based on these sell walls. And I do see this quite often in this entire space, and that it seems to move around on the altcoins. At the moment there's something happening in the Bitcoin space, and you know, I think these tactics are illegal in regards to if you looked at stocks and those type of investments. You're not allowed to do it. There's quite a lot of regulations around it, but someone is doing it now. They're also questioning whether or not it's some of these other ones that have got some major traffic. You probably find that it could be one particular entity, but they've got their little rooms set up with their little traders and Autobots, and they've got their team, and they've got a direction, and they've got an objective, and they're putting the money into Bitcoin. Now, I don't think they're necessarily going to go and do anything tragic to Bitcoin and dump it, and well, you may find there's going to be an aggressive pullback of some sort, and history shows that it could be $100, $200, $300, and I think that's going to get shorter over as the Bitcoin market cap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You see the manipulation or the effect of larger positions selling out of a particular crypto, affecting the price a bit more dynamic when the market cap's a little bit smaller. But as Bitcoin gets bigger and bigger and bigger, these corrections are going to get smaller and smaller, unless these particular people have a bigger position than the majority of the population, which I believe is also a major thing to consider, is that the big boys have got a lot more money than us, and it is highly possible. But if you wanted to have a look and read this little article, it's not that long. What I'll do is I'll just read out the first paragraph. Rumours are swirling about a trader with nearly unlimited funds who is manipulating the Bitcoin markets. This trader, nicknamed Spoofy, received his nom de jureur, there goes my pronunciation again, because of his efforts to spoof the market, primarily on Bitfinex. So according to Dodd-Frank Act, spoofing is the practice of bidding or offering with the intent to cancel the bid or offer before execution. So what they're doing is they're putting in fake buy walls, like I said, to manipulate decisions in regards to other investors and other traders. So, you know, it is an illegal practice in the normal financial world. Whether or not that gets regulated, I'm sure it's a hard one to monitor. But it's happening and it's occurring. Am I complaining? No. Like I said, I'd like to see Bitcoin go up and up and up. But at the moment, I'm saying that the altcoins are not necessarily going up. They're going up in relation to their pegging to Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin goes up, their value overall goes up because it's measured in Bitcoin. But the actual literal prices of a lot of these alts have stayed relatively the same, apart from one or two who are doing their own thing. So that's all I wanted to quickly. What I did want to maybe just quickly go to CoinMarketCap. And that reminds me too, I've had a few people ask me about doing the WebBot report. I've just got to get a hold of it. If someone's actually got the WebBot report and you want to share it with me, I'm happy to do a review on that. Just send it to my email, sebastian@onlinecoachingaustralia.com.au. It is on my YouTube. Or link me, or Dropbox, or anything like that. I'm happy to run through it. Otherwise, I'll see if I can source it like I did last time. The market cap at the moment, as a whole, and this is good signs here. Let me just $113 billion. So over the last week or so, we've seen $20 billion enter the space, and we're getting close to that benchmark of 115 billion, which I talked about, which in trader's sense, you could say it's a resistance point of some sort, or you know, it's a marker that you want to keep your eye on in regards to maybe a retracement of some sort, or a little flash crash where there's a little bit of profit taking. 115, 113 billion. I'm just looking at the tops of the market cap last month, or back in June when it was at its top. 112, 115, 113. So we're sitting at 113 billion, closing in on 113.5 billion. So how will it push through? And I think if it does push through that 115 mark, 116, I think, you know, the floodgates might open. But what we may find is when it hits, it could be this week, we might see a bit of a retracement at some stage, and then I think it will bounce back and move even further through. And I think you'll see some new money come in over the next month as well, because Bitcoin is getting a lot of attention at the moment because of its price, and so it does take a little bit of time for that to hit the markets and people start talking about it, and you know, people setting up accounts and getting their fiat currency into Bitcoin and getting it ready to inject into the space. But you know, by the end of the year, I can see over the next, at least over the next 30 days, 45 days, I think we might see some real positive stuff with this market cap, and it's going to go to all new highs as well. So you know, but I think the other side of that too is the altcoins prices have seemed to have not really run away from us. So it could be still a good time to buy in. However, if there is a retracement with Bitcoin over the next week of some sort, whether it's over just a 24-hour period, you might find that the altcoins will really drop down to just a nice little buy-in price. Not financial advice, but I can see that happening because the prices aren't going up at the moment, and it might be a really good time to scoop up a little bit more before we get that bounce back and we see Bitcoin run away again onto maybe 4,000 US. Seems to be the next target. It doesn't look like slowing down. So yeah, all-time high approaching. That's all I wanted to talk about. Spoofing, all-time high possible by the end of this month. You never know for the whole market cap. Could be the end of the week the way things are going. I mean, have a look at this. It's just climbing up very, very, very quickly. And that's the thing about this crypto space, because it's a 24-hour market. It's 365 days a year. We're seeing very different dynamics. Everything moves faster in this space compared to stocks or anything else, because the stock market's not open all the time. It's only a certain amount of hours a day, whereas this is just live. It's happening. It's alive of energy. So that's all. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know if you've got a webbot report. Email me. Otherwise, I'll go and find a legitimate way of getting the report myself, and I'm happy to run through it and do a video. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about spoofing and all of this type of stuff and what you can see ahead. Keep your eye on a couple of the other altcoins like Populous and AntShares and what else, Ethereum. There's a lot of activity in those areas, and like I said, I think there's some good buying opportunities coming up for some of these altcoins, especially if we get a bit of a Bitcoin retrace. That's if it happens. You never know. All right.